Today I thought to myself, what is the youngest age you can start at CK3? Well, as it turns out, it's the age of 0. And today, with our little prodigy, we're going to be taking control of the Byzantine Empire to see how far we can get as this poor child. So, in the year of 867, the previous ruler of one of the largest, most powerful empires in the world decided to pack his bags and hand over the reins to our little creature, Definitus Scruatus, a beautiful Roman name.
This guy just left it to him. That's so funny.
And while I didn't have much hope for him, we were going to do our utmost to ensure his survival, turning this little rancid bugger into an undeniable force from the heavens above. But let's not get ahead of ourselves. For now, Byzantium was already at war over this little patch of land in Sicily. But our little man wasn't too worried about that. He left that all to his trustworthy regent, who definitely wasn't going to cause any issues later down the line.
Oh, fantastic. My regent is a glory hound.
Definitus at this age was more concerned about being scammed by this elderly woman.
You strike me as a seasoned collector. I don't think I'm seasoned in anything, mate.
Back in the east, the war rages on, lasting 3 years. Definitus didn't get up to a lot in these first few years. His regent did most of the work and managed to bring a decisive end to the war abroad. Seeing as the current emperor was only 3, the power vacuum that this created was simply ginormous. And so, it was only a matter of time before something happened. Luckily, the regent escaped, but he was not a happy chappy. He demanded that Definitus agreed to go to war. Definitus really couldn't give two farts about what happened, so he signed the arrangement. The herald was sent across the land, forces were mobilized, and men around the entire empire marched to the meeting point on the western shores of Byzantium. One of these men would shortly become one of my favourite characters in CK3. His name was LrdHsy. After being hesitantly approached by one of my marshals about a new commander and a brief look at his skills, I was completely baffled by the lack of talent I was presented with. With 0 prowess, I wondered how this man could ever become a commander. However, as I didn't want to lose the opinion of his father, one of my most powerful vassals, he was accepted into the ranks and I sent him to meet with the main force. But I kept an eye on him, out of genuine curiosity. It wasn't long before the first battle of the Civil War was upon us. Friends against friends, brothers against brothers. The battle was a complete slaughter. Scruatus was beginning to take an interest in the military, bugging his marshal for answers, which, as I'm sure you can imagine, began to get on his nerves. The regent managed to win the civil war with ease, and Byzantium was finally at peace once more. And somehow, LrdHsy made it through this brutal conflict.
Alright, LrdHsy's got 0 kills. He didn't die, whereas this guy did die.
Until he was accidentally killed in training.
Oh my god.
I'm pretty sure they train with blunt swords. Soon after the civil war was over, the empire relaxed. A little too much, and it wasn't long until the regent was captured. For real this time. His captor was a man named Alexios, and his goal was to become regent himself. He cared little for Definitus, and only saw his regency as a one-way ticket to become one of the most powerful men in the realm. While all this important stuff was going on, Definitus had a problem of his own.
Alright, we've got a we've got a little challenge here. It's our first duel. We're 8. How old is he? 13! Fucking hell. Oh, fuck.
He was unfortunately beaten, but my god, he's taking on people twice his age. What have we created? Our little man was growing up. In fact, he'd recently formed his first thought. What was that? Sorry? You want to go to war with Bulgaria? And so a brutal and grueling invasion of Bulgaria followed. While Definitus Scruatus wasn't at the helm of the invasion, this was of course Alexios, Definitus was still present in the war rooms. He was still annoyed at how he had been cracked on the skull by a little 13-year-old shit, who was now probably serving in his army as a footman. Forcing the marshal to teach him how to fight and how to command an army, Definitus was becoming an absolute beast. He was growing at an exponential rate, and the fact that he had a few extra pennies in his pocket definitely helped him out, as he was able to commission this absolute beast of an armor set. However, even though Definitus would probably crush Alexius like an ant, he was still trying to swing the scales in his favour. What a turd. The war was going well in the west, and it wasn't long before Definitus was joyously skipping home after committing copious amounts of war crimes at the age of 14. Now that Definitus was squeezing out thoughts left, right and centre, he was beginning to realise that his regent may be a tiny bit self-interested. He was continuously tipping the balance of power his way and clearly cared little for Definitus, so he began to hatch a plan to test his theory. But first, seeing as Definitus had been named after definitely screwed, after this pop-up came up, I realised maybe it was time for a little change.
There we go.
Now, back to his devious plan. He went on a grand tour in the counties that he had an inkling didn't really like him. Unfortunately, that was most of the empire, but we won't tell him that. At each province he would visit, he would demand no tribute, but when it came to his regents, he demanded one to test his loyalty. And to everyone's shock, he denied the tribute. So okay, Definitus, don't lose your temper. You know, it's just one of the... Jesus! That is foul! After this event, rulers that had been dormantly hating Definitus rose up in rage. Definitus now found himself at the foot of his biggest challenge yet. Isolated and alone, he picked up his sword and rose to the challenge. This would be Scrawny's first war that he was fighting alone. Previously, he'd left that stuff to the marshal and his regent, but now, with no one by his side, he was all on his own and fighting the veterans of Sicily and Bulgaria. He knows that if his enemies unite against him, he stands little to no chance. So he got to work and began to take out whoever he could, one by one. At the time that the war started, Definitus was still on the way back from his tour. He rushed home to Constantinople, where he met with his main force. His wife was also now pregnant, which would hopefully secure Scrawny's line of inheritance, but there was no time to celebrate. He immediately went out with his army and began to cut down his foes left, right and centre. They stood no chance against him. Although they had more experience, Definitus was showing that he had a bright militant mind, and with all that he had learnt from his marshal and what he had seen in Bulgaria, he was an absolute force to be reckoned with. However, it could not all go well for Scrawny, and eventually he was met with failure. With half his forces defeated and the other half stuck at a siege, his worst fears had come true, with his armies being separated by one united force against him. But he still had one plan. Sending a boat down the western coast, he managed to sneak past the enemy city and reunite with the other half of his army. Scrawny knew that he had to act fast. While the other lords were united, they were still weak from their previous battles, and he knew that if he was to win this war, it would come down to this. So, him and his forces marched to Prusa, and after overlooking his enemies from the brow of a hill, he charged into battle. After winning the war, he was finally able to end his regency. At last, becoming his own ruler. Power had come to him when he was born, but he didn't know how to wield it. However, now, his enemies cowered before him, and he ruled in his own right. Thank you so much for watching today's video. If you did find yourself enjoying, then please remember to leave a like or subscribe, or both. And if you're not quite sure yet, then there's always these two videos which, you could check out. Okay, thanks guys. Bye.